The P9 was released towards the end of last year, and they ended up with 3 separate models: the P9 Lite, the P9, and the P9 Plus. So what's the difference between these models, and which one should you go for? Let's start with what's in the box. All 3 phones come with documentation, chargers, and headphones, as well as a nice plastic case, which was surprising. The P9 Lite's case has a more frosted plastic on the back, compared to the clear cases from the other 2, and these should provide an adequate amount of protection from surface scratches. The design of the phones is also similar. The P9 and P9 Plus have unibody aluminium housings, with the Plus model having a subtle brushed material. The P9 Lite, on the other hand, is a smooth plastic, but it's not a cheap feeling device, and this is due to the phone still having that aluminium chamfered edge. The only other physical changes is the P9 Lite is the only phone out of the 3 to still be using micro USB, while the other 2 are using USB Type-C. The headphone jack on the P9 Lite is also located at the top of the device rather than the bottom. And the P9 Lite is also rocking a solo camera lens on the back, whereas both the P9 and P9 Plus have a Leica dual lens setup. All 3 phones have fingerprint sensors on the back, and as you'd probably expect from a modern smartphone, they're fast, reliable, and I found them consistent. You can also swipe your finger along the back to pull down the notification panel, or swipe through images in your gallery, which is a nice touch. As for the displays, all 3 phones are sitting at 1080p. The top 2 models are coated in Gorilla Glass 3, but the P9 Plus is the only model to feature the Force Touch display. If you're familiar with 3D Touch on an iPhone, this is the same pressure-sensitive technology and allows you to push down harder on the screen to access shortcuts. I did find that colors seem to pop a little bit more on the P9 Plus, and this will be due to their AMOLED display. The bezels are sitting at only 1.7mm, giving the display an almost edge-to-edge feel. Overall, very impressed with the screens on all these phones. They all get quite bright and have good color reproduction. And you can also change the color temperature yourself in the settings to something more your taste. Moving on to the hardware, the P9 Lite has a Kirin 650, while the other 2 models have a Kirin 955, which is essentially a beefed up version of the Kirin 950. Regardless, all 3 phones performed really well. Running the Epic Citadel benchmark, the P9 Lite came in at only 10 FPS lower, and considering that's basically a third of the price of the P9 Plus, that's pretty good. It's not the fastest GPU on the market, but it'll be able to power through all those modern 3D games and Counter-Strike clones. As for the CPU stats, the phone performed as you would expect, with good, better, and best. But that P9 Plus isn't playing around, beating out Samsung's S7 in both the single and multi-core scores. The battery size is also impressive when you look at how thin all 3 phones are. I easily got through a whole day, and if you're a moderate to light user, you may even see 2 days of usage. Moving on to the software, these phones are running Android 6 Marshmallow, with Huawei's Emotion UI on top, which seems to be a bit of a polarizing launcher. There's no app drawer, and apps are just placed on your home screen similar to iOS. I personally don't mind it, but if you do need an app drawer, you may have to look at downloading another launcher. As well as UI changes, there's also a lot of additional features you don't get with stock Android, such as motion gestures, where you can flip your phone to mute, raise it to your ear to answer calls, and double tap with your knuckle to take a screenshot. There's a theme engine for easily changing up the look of your device, and the Battery Manager app gives you a good amount of control and warns you about power-hungry apps. You can even downscale the screen resolution to 720p to save power. All these little things adds a lot to the end user experience, and Huawei have done a great job. And then finally we move on to the cameras. As mentioned, the P9 Lite has a single lens 13 megapixel camera, and it takes very nice photos for a phone around this price point. Moving on to the other 2 models, the P9 and the P9 Plus are both rocking the Leica dual lens system. One sRGB and the other monochrome, working in tandem to produce some very sharp images with good color reproduction. The P9 Lite's camera is really good. Looking at the photos on their own, they look great. It's only when you place them side by side with the P9 and P9 Plus that you notice a jump in quality. The dual lens Leica cameras produce better colors and an overall sharper image. Video seems to be much the same. Decent quality, although there's no optical stabilization, so footage gets shaky when you're moving around. Really what it comes down to is the P9 Lite is a great performing device for the price. It's snappy and above what you'd expect for a phone under $400. If you pay a little more, the P9 will give you a better build quality, better cameras, and a bump in the specs. And then with a little more again, the P9 Plus gives you the complete experience, with a bigger screen, more RAM, bigger battery, Force touchscreen, and an IR blaster. It's up to you whether you find these extra features and specs worth that price bump. But regardless, Huawei have done well across the board with all 3 of these devices. You can check them out yourself in store or online. I'm Eli from PB Tech. Remember to like, subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.